nice article in the Managing Madrid blog. Wonderful lads that do a great job there. And worth reading about that man there. Karim Benzema needs to rest, and the numbers reveal why.
Times ended up almost looking like a 6-3-1. Some very good writing about that on the Managing Madrid website. First-rate podcast as well. Of course, Fede Valverde was a huge part of the equation.
Hello and welcome to a Sunday edition of the Managing Madrid Podcast. We are live in Madrid after leaving the Bernabeu, and now we are in the home of Euan McTear on his sofa, where we have recorded so many podcasts, and we're going to do it again.
Never as early as this. Usually it's after 9 o'clock kickoff or something like that, and we're speaking at like 1 or 2 in the morning, but this is like still afternoon.
I feel disoriented a little bit because I don't know what, like, it's 8 p.m. right now.
This is when the game should normally start.
Not even. The game starts an hour later, usually an hour after this. And so we
finish up and you're going back to like your place at like 3 in the morning or something sometimes.
Yeah, this is just a treat. And plus I don't have a flight tomorrow morning. My flight is on Tuesday.
Okay.
It's like, I feel like they just hit the jackpot.
Yeah.
Real Madrid beats Barcelona in Clasico. Sun is still out. Yeah. We'll finish work early. We'll have a Sunday night in Madrid and a whole Monday.
Yeah.
It just is, life doesn't get any better than this. So, wow, what a game to dissect. I'll start here. Ancelotti said after the game that it felt like the Champions League nights, but on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And before he even said that, that's exactly what I was thinking. The energy, the will, the fight, also the atmosphere, everything was, and also the efficiency on a low number of chances.
Yeah, it was
which was not something we haven't had really seen since
Champions League-esque, yeah. But it makes sense. I mean, this is, Real Madrid playing a bigger team, playing, a team of the kind of, it's a big match like the Champions League ones we saw. But that was a really nice quote, like most of Ancelotti's quotes are. But I think the quote about it being like a Champions League night, it came from a question of, do you feel like the Real Madrid fans, the Bernabeu, is more connected with the team than when you were here before? And he said, no, I think the fans, but I think so. I think something has happened in the last couple of years. He said, some of the Champions League nights last year obviously brought us closer together with the fans. I think that's true. Also, some of the certain characters in this Real Madrid team, I do think, like, being at the Bernabeu, you were there today, it's like you do notice, compared to a few years ago, maybe a bit before COVID, maybe that has something to do with it too, it does seem like there is a greater atmosphere for these matches. And not just talking about the final result, but I think you even were already tweeting about this before kickoff, before they knew that it was going to be a win.
There is a support and a love for this team that is, I think, unique even in this club's history, which is saying something. And I don't even think the team has played that well this season yet. And the results are there. So that's what I care about, is the results are there and the performances are there when it matters at the end of the season. But now you just need to grind it out. But there is a support and a belief even when Real Madrid don't play well, which is not something I've seen in the past, if I'm being honest with you. Just thinking back to the games I've attended, like today, there were moments where Real Madrid made mistakes and there were no whistles. Yeah. It was just applause, support. Like even after a giveaway, they just stood up and supported. Yeah. Vinicius, who did not have a great game, big standing ovation when he came off. Even, like, it's funny, like, we have to talk about Ferland Mendy, but Ferland Mendy is an oddly in an odd way, he's a press-resistant player. If you pressure him, he keeps the ball, but it's so unorthodox and awkward the way he dribbles and cuts inside. And there was almost this collective, like, oh no, what is he going to do? And then he gets out, and then everyone's just like, whew, relief, an applause of relief. But I think there is something there. I don't, it's maybe hard to prove, but I think there's something there.
Like, how do you measure it? You can't, but there's just a sense, and I think Ancelotti knows it, and it's something we've seen over these last few years.
So after there's a lot of juicy things after the game. Laporta acting like Khalifi. I'm exaggerating. I'm sure it wasn't as dramatic, but Xavi had some very interesting quotes. It's going to challenge ourselves to bring it forward and talk about the actual game.
Let's start at least chronologically, and maybe we get to some of the post-match. But
No surprises in the starting 11?
For Real Madrid, no. We basically named this 11 in the one we did on Tuesday night after the Shakhtar draw, where we were talking, maybe Rudiger, maybe Rodrygo, it would be harsh, but we all kind of know that basically it's going to be the same back four as always, and that Rodrygo's the one that has to sit out, and that's the way it was. The other doubt was, is Courtois back? He wasn't. Apart from that, completely predictable. We kind of knew that. Also, it comes out so many hours before the game, the Real Madrid lineup. But Barcelona's one, I think, was a mystery up until it came out, because is Koundé fit? If he plays, is he right back? Is he centre back?
Yeah.
What's the midfield? Does Frenkie de Jong get to start? If he does, for who? Dembele, Rafinha, which side? And the Barcelona lineup was always going to be a mystery, and it was, I think, a bit peculiar in points, and I think cost them the game in some points, because Xavi was asked in the press conference, one of the Catalan reporters rhymed off everybody who came on and improved Barcelona. It's like, well, why didn't all these guys start? And I think Xavi was a bit, he didn't have an answer for that. Gavi, why was he suddenly benched when he's been great since he started? Koundé comes in, why is he playing at centre back for just the second time for Barcelona when he's been used as a right back? Few questions for the Barcelona 11, I felt.
Well, I don't. So the one I was surprised about Frenkie starting, just because he hasn't been, right.
Yeah.
Koundé, I was looking at it. I was like, if he's like pretty much fit and can walk, he has to start, in my opinion, because like you look at their backline, you look at what happened against Inter, you look at Piqué at his stage of his career, there's lack of leadership, there's lack of talent right now in the backline with the injuries and stuff. Araujo not there, so I was curious to know if he's going to play, like you said, center back or right back, and I was a little bit surprised it was center back maybe, but I also thought the biggest threat they were going to face was the Vinicius transition attacks, which I thought overall they were able to subdue. Now that could be argued, it could have been Real Madrid didn't get him on the ball as much as they could have. A lot went through Fede on the right side as well, whatever.
It is the first goal of the game, so even though it didn't happen too much, it happened importantly enough one time, and that's all you need. And that's why I feel like if Koundé, was there, not Sergio Roberto, is that a little bit different? Even because think about it this way, if Koundé starts instead of Sergio Roberto, it means Piqué is starting. And I think maybe Xavi overreacted to the fact that basically on Wednesday, Gerard Piqué became a meme, the hands in the air thing, But like,
so good.
That was such just a brain fart that like the Piqué performance against Inter wasn't necessarily, Piqué's past it, he's too slow, he's too this. No, apart from that, Piqué has been kind of fine. He just had one moment which was ridiculous. But that wasn't really an identifier of a trend, I don't think. But I think Xavi overreacted to that, didn't want to play Piqué. Maybe he was never going to play him in the Clasico, but you mentioned that, lack of talent, lack of leadership. Piqué brings those two things, to be fair. You have a lack of legs, but, Koundé being in centre-back when you've got Sergio Roberto at right-back, I don't know. I just thought from the off this was a strange one. Even stranger that Sergio Roberto stayed on and Balde went off, when I thought Balde did a good job, especially because Real Madrid actually did try and attack down the right a lot more, especially first half. It was about 50% of their attacks went down the right instead of centre and on Vinicius' side. He did a good job, I think, against Fede Valverde, but if you just had Koundé on the other side, I don't know if it's a little bit different. But anyway, whatever it was, Real Madrid were prepared for it, because I think for them as well, they didn't know what they were going to face exactly until an hour before kickoff when it's announced. So,
and not to turn things into the Managing Barcelona podcast, but just quickly on their lineup. I thought their lineup was fine from their perspective. I think Frenkie gives them a lot that Gavi can't. Like the way he drives the ball forward and gets them into positions quickly.
And he did that.
And I don't know, so again, to clarify, my perspective at the stadium is always far inferior to when I'm watching at home on TV. I get the magical atmosphere, so there's pros and cons. I'm not complaining. It is, I would 100% rather be there. Sometimes I get lucky, I'm sitting beside a TV, I can watch replays, but today I wasn't. So I had no replays. I didn't see the penalties again, or the penalty, non-penalty, didn't see those replays. Even the goals I haven't rewatched, right? So I don't know. But the Balde thing, that, it was really tough for him to match up against Fede Valverde, who was just bullying him. And I think what Barcelona weren't able to do, especially in the opening frame. And Xavi said they dominated the first half. I'm not sure. Xavi says a lot of things in the post-game presser that was completely different to the way I saw it. But Xavi's way smarter than me, obviously. But the way I saw it was that Real Madrid let Barcelona's backline bring the ball up into their half and even pass out of the back, and they were fine with that. They were not trying to stop that from happening. What they were trying to do was to close the Pedri, Frenkie de Jong, and their space. And what happened was Lewandowski, Rafinha, and Dembele were trying to all play on the shoulder of the Real Madrid's defensive line, so they were high up the pitch. But there was a disconnect because when the backline brought the ball forward, they couldn't necessarily get the ball to Pedri and Frenkie in good spaces. And even if they could, the quartet of Modric, Kroos, Fede, and Tchouaméni were excellent.
Yep.
And I've already failed my own challenge of not talking about Xavi. But Xavi said something. He said, Real Madrid beat us in maturity, but not intensity. And I'm like, how can you watch Fede and Kroos, who was not only unbelievable offensively, but it was also unbelievable on defense, had a game high in tackles, was everywhere, was tracking in transition. That's not even a strength of his, but he was doing that as well. Tchouaméni, I thought, did pretty well to close Pedri's space. Militao was amazing marking Lewandowski. Ancelotti spoke about that after the game. That intensity, if that's not intensity, I don't know what is. I don't know if Barcelona outmatched Real Madrid's intensity in that front. I don't know what your thoughts on that, if you saw it differently, but the way I saw it, I was like...
Yeah, I mean, it's a Clasico. It's like the one thing that, like, you can be a coach in a Clasico, and the one thing you don't have to worry about is intensity. It's a Clasico. Everyone's intense. Everyone's running, like, more kilometers than they run every other game of the season. The Clasico is never won on intensity. Both teams are intense. It's won on different things. Tactics, maturity, experience, which honestly I think was a factor in this game.
Yeah.
This was a Real Madrid team that, you know, apart from Tchouaméni, was experienced in Clásicos. They know what they're doing. Even the young players have played 4, 5, 6 at this point. You look at Barcelona, you had, especially that back line, Koundé's first Clásico. You had Eric Garcia, only his third. Balde's first Clásico. You know, even further forward, Pedri, you know, young guy. Rafinha, first Clásico. Lewandowski, first Clásico. These are, you know, Lewandowski is a veteran, but still, it's like, this is...
First official Clásico.
Well, yeah.
Well, I don't know if we're counting. I don't, but, you know.
You were there. It happened.
It existed,
before he was actually registered with Barcelona, so maybe this really is his first Clásico. But yeah, I mean, players who, for whatever reason, they're young or they just arrived, their first Clásico, and it's like no other game in the world. You know, you can play Bayern Munich, Dortmund, or you can play any game. You can play, like, World Cup, quarterfinals, semi. These players have played big games, but, like... the Clasico is different, and until you're there, until you go to the Bernabeu, until you know what to do, I think it's difficult. And Barcelona over the years, last decade or so, even after Guardiola, have had good results at the Bernabeu. But I think partly because for players like Messi, Iniesta, some of these guys, it was almost automatic. They know, we go to the Bernabeu, we've lost here, we've won here, we are not phased, we can visualize what a win would be like. We can visualize what a defeat would be like. These players don't know this. And I think the experience, maturity for Real Madrid really did help, because you have players who were there when they won 2-0 before COVID, and you have players who lost 4-0 in March. You know, the lack of experience in the lineup surprised me as well. Going back to some of the doubts I have with Xavi's lineup, some of the other options he could have went for, Piqué, for example, was like, maybe you need someone like that, just, you know, because of the intangible he brings. So no, I think maturity, for sure, that was a correct assessment. I think Madrid were more mature.
I 100% agree with that. I also think it's not even just the experience in Clásicos that these players had on the Real Madrid side. It was also the experience in the Champions League at home.
These Champions League kind of games, yeah.
Undoubtedly enters the subconscious. Like, you know that when Ferran Torres scored, it's 2-1, they almost score again to equalize. In that moment, Real Madrid has been through that scenario before.
Yeah.
Many teams could just fold and concede. But, you know, there was no sense of panic. And I think that even the Champions League experience also factors into a game like this. I think. So, I think we got to talk about Toni Kroos. The goal, it starts with the goal, right? I think it was like around the 12th minute or something.
Yep.
Perfect start, because it's Benzema who scores. If anyone needed a goal, it was him.
True.
Scored another offside goal, which again, I assume it was offside. I don't have any replays because there was no VAR check. Okay, yeah. So
But he didn't know that. Like, he really didn't know that because you saw how much he celebrated.
Yeah,
really,
and no other player joined him.
He really, everyone else knew, but he thought he was onside. But no, the goal, obviously, like, it starts basically with Kroos. And yeah, you picked up on this where Xavi said, we should have made a foul there. And you said,
they tried.
They did.
They tried.
He still managed to put it to Vinicius, and what we talked about, the exact scenario I think every Real Madrid fan woke up this morning hoping for, and every Barcelona fan woke up dreading, was Vinicius with space against Sergio Roberto. Sergio Roberto kind of nowhere to be seen. The rest of the defence almost nowhere to be seen. They get back, the other defenders, but by the time the rebound comes off Ter Stegen, nobody's with Benzema. They're all ball watching. They're all on the line. To be fair, they were a bit unlucky. Deflection almost is cleared off the line, blocked. But still, you rather than put 3 guys on the line, you need to just put someone in front of Benzema's face. Nobody does that. Busquets is nowhere to be seen as a defensive midfielder, and it's just the kind of goal that really you could see coming, like this morning when you wake up thinking about this game.
It was exactly what we had said. That's where Barcelona are vulnerable. Here's what's interesting, and before we get to Kroos, I guess, there was a sense at halftime, because at halftime it's 2-0. A lot of Real Madrid fans were like, if we don't give them the Manita today, we have to pad it. We have to pad the stats. Ancelotti was asked about this after the game. Would you have preferred like a 4-0 revenge?
Yeah, I was writing about this actually because
I saw your quote. Yeah.
But also it's not up yet. But well, we can talk about that after the.
Oh, your three questions.
Yeah, which isn't up yet. But about the sort of, because I was surprised about. Well, let's talk about it now. I was surprised actually in the press conference that the Real Madrid journalist kind of feeling was, oh, that's great, but like we could have won this 4-0 or 5-1. And it's like, it's a Clasico win. But then I looked at it. So the last time Real Madrid won a Clasico by more than 2 goals was 2008. Since then, Barcelona have won 6 Clásicos by more than 2 goals.
So,
yeah.
Okay.
So, and even then, there's a few 3-1s or 2-0s for Real Madrid. Not that many. Barcelona have won, a couple of 4-0s, 3-0, 5-1, these kind of things. And I was like, no, come on. A Clasico, all you want is a victory. And then thinking about it, actually, like, I mean, you're a Real Madrid fan. You maybe think about this. Like, maybe as a Real Madrid fan, you do think, like, we need one. When Barcelona's won,
it would be nice.
Clásicos, sometimes they have won it in a big way, like the last one. And maybe there is a longing for Real Madrid fans to have a big goleada, as they say. Ancelotti was like, no, let's not be ridiculous. We just want to win. And I think that mentality is what leads you to actually win. If you try and do the big win, maybe you end up costing it by being too ambitious. I know it was strange, but you were saying at halftime there was this sense of
but continue that train of thought, because you wrote the post game quotes. Ancelotti's response to that was that we don't need goleada as a revenge. We just need 3 points.
Yeah, he said because Xavi put it this way as well. We only lost 3 points. Ancelotti was like, we won 3 points and they lost 3 points, so it's a 6-pointer for a reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, let me find exactly what he said. He said he was asked if Real Madrid took their foot off the gas, if they should have gone for another 4-0, like for a 4-0 of their own. He said, no, we didn't take our foot off the gas. We just think about winning matches, not thrashing teams.
Right.
We've taken 3 points for us, also 3 points off our main title rival. It's a long season, a lot of matches. Obviously, we're happy. It's like that's the mentality, I think, that actually leads you to win. If you go in trying to win by like 4 goals, that doesn't get you that performance, I don't think.
Yeah. So a couple of things. One is that if you zoom out and look at the whole game and talk about goleadas and stuff, the reality is Real Madrid, it wouldn't, like, this is not the game that Real Madrid deserved to win 4 or 5-0. Quite frankly. The XG was like pretty much neck and neck, one something against 1 something. Real Madrid did not have that many chances to have a rout. They didn't. And the second thing is that I think that's part of where the frustration comes, because that chance, the Benzema goal, where Vinicius has a ton of space to go through, we didn't have enough. We didn't have many of those. No. And I think some of the fans' frustration was like, why can't we just have like 5 of these breakaways instead of 1? You see how Barcelona are vulnerable in the situation. And I suppose that kind of goes hand in hand with Xavi's philosophy, whether it's right or wrong, and inflexible, I would word it as. This was a huge pregame thing too. Ancelotti was saying, we're not married to one way. Xavi, that's a whole different thing. But Xavi's philosophy, be it right or wrong, is like, yeah, we're gonna be vulnerable, but when we have more of the ball, it's less chance for the opponent to attack us. So this is how we defend, right? And so I see that side of it too. But I do think Real Madrid fans were frustrated just in the sense that they're happy for the W, but they were like, can we get more of these? Can we punish them more? Especially when it's 2-0, like you'd expect Barca to open up in the second half, you get more of them. There wasn't much of that. So I guess I'd be curious to know what the kind of the flow was in the second half. But yeah, the XG pretty much, Real Madrid in the second half didn't do much. There was a Benzema offside goal, which was a nice build-up, but it was offside. But second half was pretty uneventful offensively, all things considered. So, yeah. All right, so Kroos. I don't know if I exaggerated or if it's recency bias, probably a bit of both, or because I was there and I witnessed it. I thought it was one of the greatest performances I've ever seen Toni Kroos play. And that actually may not make any sense. I don't know, because when you go and look at his statistics, nothing really stands out. Like, it wasn't like, it's not like he had 10 key passes, and I didn't check much, but he had 5 tackles, which is another game high, I believe, which is a trend for him. His defense has been amazing. That's not something he's known for. I just felt like at the way he was playing, he was like transcending the field. Every single touch was perfect. Didn't matter if there was 3-4 Barcelona players swarming him. He would just duck his shoulder, evade the press, play a beautiful switch, play a beautiful through ball. I just, at any given point during the game, if he just started levitating into the sky, it would have been like, yeah, that makes sense. He's not human.
Yeah.
I thought it was an incredible Toni Kroos performance. I was thoroughly impressed. As I told you, after finished some of the writing work, I ran down. I was hoping there was a mix zone so I could catch Tony and talk to him. There was no mix zone because I didn't realize there was no mix zone. But I would have loved to have spoken to him, and just an unbelievable performance from Toni Kroos.
No, we're talking about the goal almost because that's like the one maybe highlight moment he had. But you're right, it's not really about his pass and the build up to the goal. It's all the little things he did, the tackles won, the passes, just keeping things going. Real Madrid, I think, brought the ball out quite well. Barcelona pressed fairly well, but Real Madrid did a good job of bringing it out, and Kroos was key to almost every single one of those. These are the things that are never going to make a highlight reel, but yeah, it was exactly what Real Madrid needed, especially Tchouaméni in his first Clasico. It's so much easier to go in your first Clasico when you have Kroos and Modric next to you, not so much when you're going in your first one and you have Sergio Roberto and Eric Garcia in the case of Koundé. So Kroos was just everywhere, perfect, and one of the, like you say, one of his best performances. I don't know, like he's had a lot of good performances.
Well, that's why I said, I'm sure there's an element of recency bias and exaggeration on my part. I was just floored by his performance. Thought it was amazing. So, and the midfield in general, they were like the engine. They were the oxygen of the entire team, because the way the game was unfolding, you needed pretty much foot perfect defending, and it was for large stretches. Like every time Barcelona got into space, the convergence and blocking shots at the top of the box, in the box, there was a lot of that heroism we would see in the Champions League, right? It was just converging and snuffing out space, and also just the ability to escape the pressure, because Barcelona didn't have many noteworthy counter-pressing sequences in the first half. It wasn't until Pedri had a couple, I think, like later in the half, but it wasn't. I thought, and Ancelotti himself said, we did really well to escape the pressure, and I think that was pretty important. But the way that midfield functioned as just kind of the two-way engine was impressive, and I thought Kroos was important. When you see Modric play like this in this game, and also every big game, and how could you bench him for for a game like this? Give him rests and for the other games, but in a game like this,
this is still the Gala 11 minus Courtois, obviously. Like, this is the team for the big games, and for the big games, Fede Valverde's position is right wing. It's not midfield. Some other games, perfect. For these big games, he goes there because you need to have Kroos, Modric, and Tchouaméni as your starting three. There's no doubt about that.
You mentioned Courtois. What was your assessment of Lunin today?
I mean, he was good, he was fine. Again, it's more the crosses into the box, which Barcelona didn't do that much. I thought it was a bit strange. But most of the shots he faced were not particularly difficult. A few early long distance ones from Barcelona to test him exactly as they should. He passed that. I think he was absolutely fine. Like his problem was in the passing game, which is not necessarily something we think of when we speak about Courtois, that his ability with his feet is passing game, but when he's not there, you realise actually that Courtois is a bit better with his feet than maybe he's given credit for, because when he's out and Lunin is in, you see a few wayward passes, go out for throw-ins, rushing it a little bit. But in terms of his overall performance, I think for a Clasico, what more could you ask of Lunin? Nothing on the goal that he could do either. So
So there was a moment where I was writing notes. Barcelona, I think it may have been just after Lewandowski misses the open net. How big of a chance was that actually?
That was huge, but he was offside, so I don't really know why everyone was.
So that so much. If it was offside, that inflates her XG a little bit.
Yeah, I think
that
it
was
counts.
Huge on the XG.
I think it counts, but it would have gone back for. This is the one from a yard or two out. It's
right here,
almost going right in the roof of the net. Yeah, so if you take that out, what's that? 0.38,
0.36, I think.
36.
Yeah.
If that had gone in, I think VAR is going and ruling that out for offside. It was so that was. Like in the coverage, they kept talking about this, but that's great. But like, it didn't really happen. Like as much as the Benzema,
that's interesting. I didn't know that.
If you take out the Benzema goal, then take that out of your like XG and things like that too.
Yeah.
So that was a huge chance. Obviously, like I don't know how he misses it, but then it's like almost all. He's really stretching for it. Fair enough. Like we would all miss it too. It's not one of the one where it's like, oh, my grandmother could score. No, this was actually a little bit harder than it looks. Like to even get to, most people can't get to. He gets to it, and it's almost going straight in the roof of the net, just over. That's fine.
So right when he misses it, I put my head down to just take some notes that was happening, and then I hear the Bernabeu groan, and I look up and Barcelona have the ball, even though it was our goalkeeper. I was like, what happened? Did Lunin give the ball away?
I think that was one of the ones where it went out for a throw-in, yeah.
Okay, so and so
which I think happened a couple of times, or a couple of ones where he kind of played a poor pass and Barcelona get it in midfield, and there was a few, and there was I think one point like I can't remember who it was. I think it was Alaba went over to him and said, "Look, let's at this point number one they had the lead and just take your time a little bit more." Like I think Lunin wanted to get the pass out there before Barcelona were set, but to be honest, one of the good things about Barcelona, one of their strengths, is they get set marking players really quickly. So whether you play it in 5 seconds or 30 seconds, like take your time, it's okay. Like they're winning as well. So
yeah,
he got better actually in the second half with that as well. So.
Well, it's funny because everything in my notes about Lunin up until that point was like his distribution has actually been pretty good. His numbers weren't bad either. I think it was like 8 of 11 long balls. I don't know what it was.
I would disagree with that. I think his distribution was pretty
up until that point.
Okay.
It was, and then I saw that happen. And then what was interesting is that Benzema sprints all the way back to our own box, and Kroos follows him, and they just telling Lunin like.
They told him as well.
Yeah,
right,
they were like, just relax, slow it down. There's no rush with these goal
kicks.
kicks.
I think exactly what Alaba was saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So. It was just an interesting thing to note. That Lewandowski chance, it comes through a decent phase from Barcelona, where they're starting to, like Pedri's starting to break lines a little bit. Up until that point, Rafinha and Dembele had zero efficiency. They weren't able to get past Mendy and Carvajal. Lewandowski was isolated, but then it shifted a little bit. And I think there was just, as with like almost any Clasico, there's waves of momentum for both teams. I think Real Madrid started better, and then Barca had a period in the middle of the first half where they grew into the game. Real Madrid also scored the second goal. Kind of, they broke the momentum with the second goal.
About then, yeah. Like,
Yeah, so what do you remember from the second goal?
I mean, like, it looks different. It's not exactly the image I think Real Madrid fans were dreaming of, that get the ball to Vinicius in space, but it's actually quite similar. Of Vinicius is really central, but Carvajal does well, gets to Vinicius in space in their half. And it's not Vinicius on the left wing like everyone expects him to be, but he's in the middle, there is space, and he is able to start the move. Real Madrid are patient, and again, Busquets is nowhere to be seen, and you leave Valverde free at the edge of the area where Busquets should be, and Valverde this season at least is going to finish that chance, and he does. So
when I saw him just teeing up free at the top of the box, I was like, he's been hitting the crossbar from like 40 yards contested. You give him that much space, I just knew like that was going in. He's hitting that. I mean, his leap continues to be incredible offensively. Just
I found performance. I was writing about him in Clásicos. I found a stat about him. So he loves third goal in the Clasico for him. He's scoring a goal every 203 minutes of Clásicos.
I love it.
He's scoring a goal every 1,140 minutes against any other opponent. So like at least like 5 times more likely to score in a Clasico than any other game is Fede Valverde, which small sample size, scored 11 goals in his Real Madrid career, but 3 of them have been against Barcelona, and big ones too. Like there was the last one was the Supercopa semi-final. I think it was the extra time one. He scores, which was the winner, I guess.
Yeah.
Or at least the.
So this is his third one, you said?
Third one. I don't know what the other one is. I think he scored
in the Camp Nou. He makes a run in the right half space. I remember it very clearly. Like
a couple of years ago. Yeah.
So he has 11 Real Madrid career goals.
Yeah.
How many of them are this season?
5. Yeah, he's.
This is going to be one of those.
He's halfway to Ancelotti's. Remember, Ancelotti set the target like almost for himself. Like if I can't get Fede Valverde to score 10 goals in a season, I'm a bad coach. Remember, he said that.
Yeah.
Or I should give in my license as being a coach. Well, we're not even halfway through the season. Valverde's halfway there to that 10 goal target.
I have to say, I remember after the Clasico last year, the 4-0.
Which one? Okay.
I was so critical of Ancelotti. And I've said this many times, I don't want anyone else to be managing this team. Until this run ends, whenever the magic ends, then that happens. That we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But right now, the way he's unlocked so many players mentally, and also getting the best out of Fede, getting the best out of Vinicius, it's been an incredible job as a manager that he's done. And so while there are flaws and stuff, there are, but what he's doing now is unbelievable. Just the way he also navigates the press conferences, navigates some of the decisions, also his tactical wrinkles. He was talking about today, like, I think someone asked him about man marking, right?
Like if Militao was asked to man mark Lewandowski, and he was just like, no, but it looked like it. But he was like, no, all we told him was like Militao was supposed to be more aggressive with Lewandowski, and Alaba was supposed to keep the line a bit more.
Yeah.
But I love that way that he can just be honest as well and be like, no, we didn't tell him to man mark, but like I can see why you would think that because it looked like it. And he's always going to be honest. I think he is one of the most honest coaches in his press conferences, almost too much that like you can tell when he's like sort of lying a little bit to try and throw off the opposition manager, and he's not a good liar. But that also actually I think reminds us sometimes like you could watch the game and see Militao kind of man marking Lewandowski, and you can draw a conclusion. And I think it's always important when we're talking about our analysis of the game not to always say Militao was told to man mark Lewandowski, and always it looks like this, because you never know what the actual instructions were, and in this case that wasn't the specific instruction. It's just it really looked like it. Ancelotti in his press conferences is just 10 times more interesting, insightful, educational than Zidane was, which was quite dry.
Well, Zidane, I'm sure in his brain it was magical, right? But it was just about the intent to verbalize it, and he had no interest in talking to anyone. So, the Militao thing was interesting because, as you said, he said that, we basically didn't tell him to man mark, but be more aggressive, and Alaba, just make sure it's organized, the line is organized, and make sure your zones are covered. Yeah.
Which is ironic, since Alaba had the most aggressive action on Lewandowski in the game with the elbow that
between Militao and Tchouaméni, I thought they really took care of Lewandowski. Mm-hmm. And it's, no one really truly takes care of Lewandowski. Lewandowski is going to get to his spots. He's going to do good things. I thought he did actually some good things in the build-up to, in Barcelona's build-up, even though he didn't score or whatever. But they contained him about as well as you can contain Lewandowski.
You're still going to get like chances, and it's sometimes you can't judge a defender on whether Lewandowski scored against you or not. how many chances did you limit him to, and did he have a good day or a bad day? He had a fairly poor day in this one. That's partly the defenders not giving him too many chances, but he's always going to get chances too, and then it's just up to the coin flip, does he take them or not? He obviously got the little back flick for Ferran's goal, so but of course if you can take away 50% of Lewandowski, then that is 50% of Barcelona this season, so that was enough. But yeah, you're right to speak about Tchouaméni, because he did so well in it. When you look at average positions as well, he was like so deep at some points, but not necessarily because he was forced to. I think he just really helped out Alaba and Militao, and was just everywhere, and could also get forward when he had to be. So it was good.
Well, back to Militao for a second too. I thought, especially in the first half, there was some in the second half too, where he was just needlessly on the ball, dabbling a little bit, giving it away, not comfortable with the pressure. But defensively, I thought he was pretty much perfect. Just the way he steps up and intervenes, intercepts balls, coming out of the back, aggressive in that manner, but calculated. He's always been... His aggressive nature in that sense rarely costs the team, because he almost always gets the timing of those interventions correctly.
Yeah.
And he was awesome. It has to be said. It's such a luxury that you can just have that, and then Rudiger comes off the bench.
Yeah.
I mean, that's unbelievable. What else?
Yeah, I think so. Rudiger, I tried to find a replay to go back enough to see this, but I think it's Rudiger that wins the ball for the move that leads to the third goal, like the penalty. He's only on the pitch to close the game out, to defend, but I'm pretty sure it's Rudiger wins the ball back, the move starts, but all the replays I've seen so far at least don't go back that far to... they show you Rodrygo scoring, or they show you the foul, but they don't go that far back. But Rudiger, again, just coming on, really, I think...
As a wing-back.
Really, for Carvajal, really, I think... winning over the Real Madrid fans. I think it sounded like through the broadcast that when he came on, it was everyone appreciated what he did.
There's a Rudiger cult,
his bloody
and it's very inclusive. Everybody loves him.
Contribution on Wednesday. So
yeah. How did the mask look? I didn't see. All I saw was from distance.
Looked scary.
Yeah. It's just like the Chelsea one he wore, I guess, right?
I think it was a bit different. I think it was a different injury. This was more just to prevent the cut from opening again.
Yeah.
I think the last one was like a fracture. But yeah, like to go on the Clasico with a mask and see that out is like, honestly, I don't think people understand how like difficult it is to play with one of these masks just for like your eyesight.
I can't imagine.
It's...
I can't even sit down wearing a mask because I can't even see who's sitting next to me.
Yeah, so
I can't imagine what it's like to be playing with it.
So to come on at your first Clasico and make a contribution, he did great, and I think Rodrygo, I guess, we've kind of at various points gone through the whole starting lineup more or less, praised them all. We're starting to do the subs now. Rodrygo, I guess we should speak about, because he did exactly what he was supposed to do. There was a point I was thinking maybe Rodrygo actually doesn't get on, which I think will become a big talking point and a drama, but it shouldn't be. But the idea of Rodrygo not starting was, number one, someone has to not start, and number two, he's a great player to bring on if you need a goal. Real Madrid didn't need a goal. It was 2-0 still at this point, even 2-1. He comes on and he gets them a goal. He wins a penalty, he takes it. Here's a stat. Rodrygo taking the penalty. What did you think when he's... who did you think was taking the penalty? Rodrygo obviously wins it, but who did you think... Because Benzema's off at this point. Modric, I think, is off at this point. Who did you think was going to take it?
Honestly, from the players who were on the field, it would have made sense that it was Rodrygo.
So he takes it. He was the youngest player to take and score a penalty in a Clasico for over 100 years.
What? Do we know who the guy was?
The last time was 1916.
What?
Guess who? So Rodrygo's...
Santiago Bernabeu?
Yes.
Wow.
Rodrygo, 21 years old, is the youngest player, I think second youngest in Clasico history, since Santiago Bernabeu in 1916, I think, when he was 20.
Stat.
So over 100 years ago.
That's an unbelievable stat.
And I was like, okay, that's a cool stat. That's nice trivia. I was like, actually, that's significant too, because it's basically it's saying neither Barcelona nor Real Madrid trust players that young to take a penalty in a Clasico, because that's one of the most nerve-wracking moments other than a penalty in a World Cup Champions League final. That is even at this, you're winning 2-1, it's kind of to close the game out, but even still, you miss that. Ter Stegen almost gets there. If he saves it, Barcelona go up the other pitch. They have a momentum. Real Madrid are a bit all over the place. Maybe it's 2-2 and you're the villain of the defeat, A lot of pressure and a little bit lucky, but he scores it and he won it, takes it, scores it, and makes a bit of history.
Well, what's interesting is, I don't know if you guys caught this on TV, but this is one of the advantages I finally have over anyone who's watching at home, is as soon as the VAR review happens, the referee runs to the screen, Rodrygo just picks up the ball and starts walking to the penalty spot.
Right, before it's confirmed.
Okay. Before it's confirmed. So
you knew who was taking it because you saw Rodrygo.
Well, I knew, but also
because when they were looking at it, and there were many decisions, if, buts, maybes. This was, to me, one of the clearest ones, was that's a foul as long as he's onside, which actually is one of the more grey areas, but as long as he's onside, that's a foul. So you're kind of okay, the referee has to go over and look, and this will take about 30 seconds. And at that moment, I'm thinking, right, so when we get back onto the taking of the penalty, I was but who's going to take it? Maybe Rodrygo, he won it, but I'm not seeing at this point that he's holding the ball.
Well, he doesn't even consult with anyone. He just picks up the ball and walks away from everyone else who's in the middle of the field.
Just fair enough, because who else? Asensio's on the pitch. Who else? It's there's not that many strikers on the pitch at that point. So
it would have
give it to him,
unless it's Kroos or Alaba.
Valverde was still on. Yeah,
but Alaba could. But Rodrygo made sense. Yeah, for sure. So what is this about Laporta going to the locker room after the game?
So
or to the referee's locker room?
Yeah, it's officially in the referee's act, I guess, acta. I don't really know how you translate that, act of the game, I guess, minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
They always have a bit other incidents. I think in the Clasico, the other incidents bit is usually a bit more filled than most other games. But yeah, Laporta went down to the referee's dressing room in the Bernabeu, which is right between the changing rooms, this little room that they have, and he went in there to complain about multiple actions. He was told to leave, and he left without any further incident, is what the report says. You mentioned it a little bit, Al Khalifi with PSG did that one. It's never a good look.
It's a watered down version of that, but it's still not a good look.
It's not a good look. I never understand why they do this. And I understand sometimes coaches in press conferences putting pressure on referees, complaining about decisions to hopefully get something back. But a president doing that is never going to win you favour with the referees.
It also it serves no purpose.
No.
It's an emotional decision that serves no purpose.
That's the thing. I think it's an emotional decision. Laporta's an emotional guy. I don't know.
I didn't even know this happened until somebody asked Ancelotti. I was like, Laporta did what?
Yeah.
I didn't know about this. But what is he? I'm assuming so. He's complaining about Rodrygo's penalty and then the non-penalty that Barca didn't get.
I don't know.
The Carvajal Lewandowski incident.
There was 3 or 4 incidents in the game that were very, very grey, but to the point that you can't be angry either way because. So the first one I think is the Alaba and Lewandowski elbow in the face, which I think all the Spanish refereeing experts agree, if that's inside the penalty area, that's a penalty and a yellow card. That's an elbow in the face, that's pretty bad. The question is it inside the box? And I've watched the replay a few times and it's I think it is inside the box. I think it's on the line, which is inside the box. Mm-hmm. Very narrow. For VAR to work that out is really hard because they're not going to start drawing offside lines almost to work out if he's in the box. That's not happening. So is it clear and obvious error? No, you play on. Then the other 2 incidents, I think it's the Lewandowski, Carvajal and Lewandowski, which to me, I think it was a penalty. Then you have the Rodrygo, Eric Garcia on Rodrygo, and I think it was a penalty. I mean, I don't really think these influence the game. You also think about if Lewandowski gets the penalty on Carvajal at that moment, it's only 6-7 minutes before their actual goal. Maybe they score a bit earlier, but that doesn't mean the scoreline is 2-2. You score a penalty, the whole game changes because it's suddenly a kick-off from centre circle. The butterfly effect, the whole game changes.
Yeah.
Where Barcelona going to score a second goal? I don't know. So I don't really think there's too much to complain about. The Rodrygo one was clear. There was a question mark of offside, which I don't think Laporta seen, but this was Nacho Tellado was one of these Spanish graphic designers turned VAR gurus, and basically pointed out that they drew the VAR line wrong because they measured it from Rodrygo's feet when his head and knees were further ahead, and then it's offside before the penalty. But these are all things that, like, you can't be that angry about at the referees, because they're all not clear and obvious errors. I don't think all of them you can blow the way they were blown or blow the other way, and it's perfectly, the referees are not going to be reprimanded by their bosses afterwards. So I don't really think there's always going to be controversy in a Clasico when there's like 50-50 decisions, and I think there were about 3 or 4 50-50 decisions, but the referee ruled some in favour of Real Madrid, some in favour of Barcelona, this, that. It's, you know, you certainly can't be angry at the main referee when you're the president, because he's not the guy drawing the offside line. Like, he's not the guy being told or not to go and review certain incidents or not. I don't know. I don't really understand Laporta doing that, and I think it looks bad on Barcelona, and it's not going to help them win favour with referees going forward. So a bit ridiculous, but Clasico gets the best of everyone.
Well, I don't have much to add to what you said. Again, I'm really without replays. I saw the photo of the stamp on Rodrygo. Was it Eric Garcia?
Yeah, I mean, this is so clear. Like, people were even debating like whether that was a foul or not. I was like, no, that's a penalty. Like, the only doubt with that one was Rodrygo onside before. But the foul is like, it's like you can't just stamp on someone's foot. Like, what are we talking about here? But, you know, Carvajal also kind of fouled Lewandowski. Like, you know, so I get why some people are mad, but you can't be mad at the referee. The referee, I don't think, made a mistake, even if, which both things can be true. The referee, I don't think, made mistakes in these decisions, even if he could have also blown the other way, and that would still be legitimate, because there's so many grey decisions in football, and there was a few of them just happened to be all in one game. Bit unlucky for the referee. If you're refereeing a Clasico, which I can't imagine, you kind of hope for the fewer grey area decisions as possible. Which is unlucky for him that there was a few in one game, and you know that can happen.
I'll have to tomorrow. I have Churros y Tácticas with Diego, so I'll have
see
to
what he sees about.
I'm sure that he will have the entire reel of.
He probably will. He probably will. But.
So I'll have to brush up on that. Where does this leave in the? Does this mean anything for the title race? Obviously, it means something because it's a 6-point swing. Winter champions statistically
could be more likely to be winter champions. Well, that's a bit weird this year because, like we were talking about, as long as you're top on like the second week of November, you're winter champion. It was so much talk of going into this game of Barcelona are first, Real Madrid are second. Like they're really not. Like they're both level on points. Barcelona's ahead on goal difference, but at the end of the season, it's not goal difference that decides it. It's head to head. So Real Madrid are now 3 points ahead, and they have a good advantage already in the head to head. To lose that advantage, they'd have to lose by 2 in the Camp Nou. So yeah, Real Madrid, huge victory, huge statement. I tweeted this before the game. Next game is Elche away. Like, do not be surprised if Real Madrid draw that.
That's a classic loss.
Jorge Almiron is back as a new Elche coach. I remember his Elche team that were awful managed to get a 1-1 draw, I think, with Real Madrid a couple of years ago. It was a penalty miss or something. He's playing a back 5, no strikers. That was against Valencia. Like, this could be the opposite kind of football match as the Clasico. Very defensive, very tough, away from home. Don't be surprised if this is like 0-0 and suddenly this 3 points, 6 points is not so valuable. But right now it's huge. 3 points ahead in a league where both teams were looking on it, and they have, more important than anything, is the head-to-head advantage as well. So
yeah, no, was it you who told me, or maybe it was Sam who was saying that this is it was like the 8th time in history.
Yeah, we were saying this on Tuesday.
Yeah,
only the 8th time that going into a Clasico, Barca and Madrid were first and second and tied on points.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. Yeah, so like literally, this was one of the more significant ones in history because
this was huge.
This doesn't always happen.
You know. Like, this was, like, we'll see what Atletico Madrid do. Like, they got a big win in Bilbao this weekend, but, like, it looks like this is a 2-team title race this year.
I don't know.
I mean, they're only now...
They can make a push, but I don't know if they can cover the ground of a title race.
They're only now 1 point behind Barcelona, interestingly enough. But
oh, really?
Atletico, yeah. I mean, they win away, they don't win at home. Atletico are weird. I don't think this Atletico squad is capable of being in the title race. So
I think the squad is good, but it's not as good as Real Madrid Barcelona, but it's a pretty damn good squad. The names on paper are pretty good.
There's only about 19 names.
19 names, that's a lot of names.
Yeah, Real Madrid and Barca have 25 players in their squad.
Odriozola is not playing, Hazard's not playing, Mariano's not
this
playing.
This is a different debate, but like you
right.
talk about squad depth, it's like Atletico, like on their bench last night had like 5 players. Like Atletico's first 11 maybe is as good as Barca and Madrid, but I would say their squad depth is like, never mind the quality of the players that are backups, they just don't have very many backups, and in this season especially, that's not going to cut it. But anyway, assuming we're ruling Atletico out of the title race, I think this year feels like a classic Madrid-Barca from like 10 years ago, and that makes the Clásicos even more important than usual.
Yeah.
Like, next Clasico, Real Madrid can kind of go into it, and a draw is an amazing result. Last few years when Atletico were there, you can draw the Clasico away at Camp Nou, and it's almost like you've dropped 2 points compared to Atletico, because they were still in the title races too. This year it seems a bit more head-to-head, and to have won the first one 3-1, have a 3-point lead, is huge.
When you look at that schedule, Barcelona's upcoming games, do you see anything? So Villarreal
at home, Athletic at home. At home they should, you imagine, win those games. Villarreal and Athletic aren't actually doing that well either. But I mean, to be fair, both Real Madrid and Barcelona have had sort of, because people are talking, maybe this is a 95, 100-point league. Look at them. They've both, going into this, they'd had 8 rounds, 7 wins, 1 draw each.
I still think it's possible, but
look at who they played, both Barcelona and Real Madrid. Neither of them have had too many tests. Real Madrid had the derby away. Barcelona really haven't had that many tests. Sevilla away, but this is a bad Sevilla. This is when the tests start to come up, Valencia away is coming up for Barcelona. Real Madrid still have, this as well. Like, these kind of...
The second half of the season will also be more difficult, because then you get Villarreal away, and Athletic away is much harder than
all these
Celta away as well.
All these kind of teams that aren't necessarily top teams, but that they are difficult to play away. Like you just named them, like Celta, Real Sociedad, Athletic, Valencia.
Yeah.
Valencia might finish 10th, but going to Mestalla is difficult for Barca and Real Madrid, And that, to be fair to Atletico, they've won already at Sevilla, at Valencia, at Bilbao. They've drawn at Real Sociedad. They've won at Getafe. That's another kind of, they're not good, but going away to Getafe is difficult. So I think Barcelona and Real Madrid have both had relatively easy starts to the season. I think they will both drop a lot of points going forward. I think it will be about an 88, 89, 90-point league. But I think it's so even this year between those two. Like, their kind of strength of schedule so far, what they have to come. So taking 3 points in this game is huge. Like, obviously.
Valencia away, I'm calling it now. It's going to be Valencia are just going to miss like 5 open nets. For
Barcelona away at Valencia, you mean?
Yeah.
Right.
And Barca's going to score like 95th minute and win that one. That's how it always goes in Mestalla. That's the stereotypical Valencia-Barcelona game in my mind.
Yeah.
I guess I'm going to pull up my notes, but you can just also blabber off whatever you think we missed.
Well, I think we've done most of the game. We've kind of already done some of the post-match, Laporta. I don't know if there's anything else Xavi or Ancelotti said. I mean, they both had, obviously, all the Ancelotti quotes already up on Managing Madrid. He spoke a lot. They gave a lot more questions than a normal post-match press conference. Normally they give 4 or 5, but they gave maybe about a dozen questions. So there was time for him to speak about a lot of interesting things, which we don't need to go through. But, Benzema Ballon d'Or, he had something on that. On Valverde, on Kroos maybe retiring. Do they want to keep him? Xavi was, kind of complaining. We spoke about his analysis of the game already, so I think this is kind of
that's
the Clasico recap.
Yeah, I mean, wait, what did you say about Xavi? There was a quote in there from the press conference that you mentioned
about Xavi, the one we spoke about before about maturity versus intensity.
No, there was something else you just said. My mind blanked for some reason because I was multitasking. But the only other thing I wanted to also be fair to Vinicius, because he did have a quiet game offensively, right? But again, he was
starts both the first 2 goals also.
Yes, a moment's player. I wanted to backtrack on what I said earlier, just to be fair to him. He's a moment's player. He'll always come good. He'll always contribute to the attack in key moments. Also work really hard defensively. Like there was in the second half when Dembele gets through. Vinicius sprinting back and just
I saw everyone going crazy about this, but like that was also 100% a foul.
Don't care, even if it's a foul.
Well, no, exactly. But everybody was going crazy about this. It's like I kind of love it that like they love the hustle because actually maybe if you're Real Madrid, you'd maybe rather Vinicius wasn't there and maybe just threw him in. He makes a good tackle and move on and don't.
Well, it looks like Dembele's about to shoot.
He does well to get back there. It's 100% a foul, that one, but you're not wanting Vinicius to make like precision tackles. You just love the effort that he makes and the crowd goes crazy. You win the ball back. That's what you want to see. But it's the hustle more than the defensive skill with him.
Well, just that. I think from a tactical perspective, with Barcelona, you mentioned that Barcelona didn't cross as much, and I think they only crossed like 8-9 times, maximum 10. But in the past few games, there's so much of their gameplay was get the ball to Rafinha and Dembele and let them do something from the wings and get the ball into the box. Real Madrid were able to limit that, and I think. You got key contributions defensively on the left side to help Mendy from Kroos and Vinicius, and on the right side, obviously you have Fede there and Modric there, which is obviously almost guaranteed a certain baseline of defensive help, and that in combination with the narrow scheme with Fede tucking in on defense, you basically covered all your defensive zones to the best you could. And
or at least the zones where Barcelona are strongest, and
sure
they couldn't play for the middle.
Yeah. So I don't know what else to necessarily scrape out. I'm sure there's only something we missed, but
we've got a few days now before midweek round of La Liga. I'm sure there'll be. Well, there's already, I saw so much on the site already. Sam did 6 stats today instead of 3.
Haven't read them yet, but I saw that.
Because it's Clasico. You've got to go bigger, better, bolder.
Yeah. The
post-match there's going to be more than ever. Like you said, you've got Diego on tomorrow.
Yeah. So we also, we tested something out before the game. We went 2 hours before the game. I usually only go 1 hour before the game because I'm kind of desensitized to the whole atmosphere at this point. So I just go 1 hour and I just take my seat. We went 2 hours today because we wanted to try like kind of an Arsenal fan TV version, but just talk to Real Madrid fans.
But better.
But quite frankly, quite worse because we don't have their production value.
True.
And so we're gonna see. We interviewed a bunch of fans outside the stadium. And we're not going to post all of them. Really depended on some of them were really, really fun. So we have to go through and check out the video and audio footage after and see what's worthy enough to post. But we're trying to like engage the fans more. But what was cool about it was that I asked everyone. I told them like, look, people aren't going to watch or listen to this until after the game. But what's your prediction? Let's see how it ages. And everyone said 3-1. Everyone said 3-1. I don't know if it was just like, 3-1 is an easy thing to guess.
Yeah.
Or it was like, maybe there's like an omen in here. Maybe we should do this before every game and start to see what the correlation is over like a long sample size.
If you find the same guys as well each time and you can do like a sort of league table, keep scores of them and
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen because these guys were all
here for one off. Yeah, exactly.
Here for the weekend, but
they're not there for Real Madrid versus Cadiz or whatever.
Cadiz, yeah. Just to keep the listeners updated, we'll let you know when we post it because we'll probably post it on YouTube and we'll post the audio as well. Any concluding thoughts? This is now or forever hold your peace.
Just to reiterate, this is huge. Doesn't matter if it wasn't 4-0. This is 3 points. For Real Madrid, 3 points off Barcelona and a good start to the head-to-head, which remember is how the tie-break is actually decided, not goal difference if it stays that way at the end of the season.
I was going to say it'll be interesting to see how Barcelona bounce back from this, plus the Champions League failure, but more importantly, how do Real Madrid bounce back from this? Do Real Madrid follow the Clasico win with a loss to Elche, or will they continue
so many times? We were talking about before the game of what Real Madrid are like going into Clasico. Definitely after Clasico, they can do this. The one I remember most obviously was before COVID when they won 2-0 at the Bernabeu. Vinicius scored one. I think there was maybe an own goal or Mariano even.
That was the
in the
last
rain.
one before the pandemic.
That was like 2 rounds before the pandemic, and then the final round before the pandemic they lost to Betis, so they actually went into the COVID break.
Right, that was the
Barca.
last game at the Bern. That was the Mariano one. Yeah.
So they beat Barcelona to go ahead in the table, and then the very next week ended up behind Barcelona again. So just be careful. It just means Wednesday night, Elche Real Madrid. Tune in. That's actually quite a big one.
It is a big one. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you gotta hold serve. You know, you win the Clasico, you gotta make it stick.
For sure. Well, thanks for hosting as always.
No problem.
Thanks to listeners for tuning in, and we will catch you guys. I think Lucas and I are going to do a podcast tomorrow. El Dia Después, and then of course, Diego and I with the spicy churros episode tomorrow as well. So thanks, Euan. Appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Take care. All right, before we put a bow on this and send you along on your way to enjoy the rest of your day, we wanted to give a quick shout out to our patrons over on patreon.com/Managing Madrid who do so much to support the show. And if you pledge $10 or more, not only do you get access to every single bonus content we put out like every other patron does, but you also get guaranteed responses to your questions and you get a specific shout out on the podcast. So shout out to these $10 plus patrons as follows: Brandon Alvarez, Willie Reed, Will Sousa, Wei Pering, Wamik Jamal, Tobias Royo Botcher, Tariq Goktas, Talib Salhab, Tahmid Kalam, Sushank Damala, Sujai Wani, Sumanchu Singh, Sheikh Hatiri, Shamil, Shabal Sharapov, Sergio Arispe, Santos Solorzano, Samuli Justin, Samir Z, Said Mahad, Sai Mohan, Sasi Kumar, Rodrygo Balmaceda, Rishi D, Phoenix, Peter Powell, Paulo Fierro, Patrick Odayafari, Oscar Barrera, Nico Laxo, Nicholas Zapatero Zubiare, Nicholas Moeller, Mowgli, MJ Diego, Nick Ribeiro, Michael Zinberg, Marin Myrtle, Matthew Atkins, Martin Ridman, Magnus Lext, Logan Stahl, Leon Stavronakis, Kunal Tilakar, Crystal Glass, Kevin Rivera, Jose Cruz, John Fernandez, Jeff Thurston, Jason Fitz, Ian Marley, Graham Gerard, Gary Kohut, Frederick Rantakiro, Frederick Sundros, Faisal Hamdan, S.A. Davisito, Eloy Enriquez, Edward Sossman, Daniel Williams, Con P, Christian Toft, Christian Acosta, Charles Williams, Brendan Powers, Brandon Stevens, Ashik Bashar, Armand Gashi, Armando L, Antons Rudenko, Anirudh Singh, Ananya Kumar, Alex Steiberg, Al, Azaz Hussein, Adrian Rios, Adar Zalukovic, Adam Dorsey, Bella Chow, Varun, Ramtin Maghrur, Fabian Moreno, and Daniel Smith. You guys are legends. Thanks for being a part of the family. We look forward to seeing you guys on many more future episodes, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Hala Marid.